Game Developers Conference 2025 is over, and we are going to talk a little bit about an amazing talk from an individual named Hannah Gunderman. So, my name is Ojiro. I work in games, and I was alerted to an individual a while ago, this Hannah person. And there are some people in the games industry where I know if I hear anything about them, it's going to be hilarious. And this is one of those people. She made this amazing article a while back that was called Toxic Positivity and How to Avoid It in Games for Emotional Well-Being, where she talks about how the uh, major drivers for toxic positivity and things like that are capitalism and white supremacy, a bunch of capitalism and white supremacy. Talks about it 7 times in this little conversation. So, what I want to do, since she's talking about this article, or this video from the GDC Vault on, hey, buddy, Thriving Players Summit Avoiding Toxic Positivity in Games for Emotional Well-Being by Hannah Gunderman. So, I want to just show you some of the highlights I got from watching this video. And what I would like you to do, if you want to play along, is to make a guess at how many times this individual is going to bring up capitalism and white supremacy as major driving factors for toxic positivity. Keep in mind, this is a 25-minute video with a 5-minute Q&A at the end. So, sorry, 25-minute long presentation. All right, buddy, get over here, you. So without further ado, let's show the highlights.
Even just pulling out a couple of these structural sort of systemic influences on that. Systems like white supremacy, capitalism, which I do go into more detail in the article, living under these kind of structures like white supremacy, like capitalism. And that sort of made me step back a little bit was I can do anything I put my mind to. And I thought, well, yeah, that's a great sentiment. But then I'm thinking about, well, what about folks who might have barriers that, again, these systems, white supremacy, capitalism, put in front of us? That's valuable. It can give us a little bit of resilience, moments of calm, but alone, it cannot fix impacts of, things like effects of white supremacy, capitalism, ableism, discrimination, different things like that. And then 3, naming external influences on mental health. So being very open with players about different systems like capitalism, white supremacy, and how that impacts mental health. What's my positionality under these systems of white supremacy, capitalism, et cetera? Do I have certain privileges that other people do not? And so it's definitely something where I recommend not listening to me as a white person.
Now you'll notice in there that pretty much nothing was about video games, because this individual, they specialize on the research side for emotional well-being apps, and she kind of goes out of her way to be like, oh, but if you're making an emotional well-being game, this is what you would do. And a lot of her talking about toxic positivity is actually her saying things like, well, what may be positive, things for one person are negative things for another. It's not a particularly useful presentation, as it may come as a shock to all of you. However, there were a few individuals that come in the Q&A section and ask them about what we consider to be toxic positivity in the games industry, which has consistently been an issue of things being generally bad, but you aren't allowed to give any kind of things that could be considered negative feedback, or heck, feedback at all, if it could be against certain ideas or concepts, because a lot of people in the games industry right now are more driven by whatever kind of weird worldviews they have instead of making good games. So for the individuals that come up in the Q&A section and they say, hey, we've done, we're worried about toxic positivity as we know it.
So this isn't really about apps, but more about studio culture. Recently, my studio, we did a team health survey, and we got feedback that the studio culture was tending towards toxic positivity from the leadership. What are conversations I can have with fellow people in leadership to avoid this kind of culture and promote a more neutral positivity, I guess?
So I'm not going to show Hannah's reaction here because she's a bit of a slow speaker and I want to be mindful of your time. She does talk about two things. One, which I agree with, where if you're giving feedback to, in particular, upper management individuals, a lot of that feedback could be considered toxic to them. So just keep that in mind when you're having these conversations. But her second suggestion is for her to point to some of the things that she has worked on here to say, oh, well, we have these great things where we, you know, give you a guide for what you should do when talking to senior management. And let's be realistic. If you come up to try and change some kind of culture at your company and you show them a document that is just bonkers, you're going to lose a lot of respect from those individuals. Because at the end of the day, for all of these studio culture issues that we see in the games industry, it's generally a political problem, meaning you need to talk to people, get them to buy into the idea of changing whatever practice or culture issue you have at the company. So for those kinds of cases, it's a little more difficult. It's very time consuming in some cases. I think we have all seen this happen in a negative sense, where with individuals like Anita Sarkeesian doing like feminist frequency and having her elevated really high in the games media back when the games media was somewhat more respectable. And then eventually with things like the drive for DEI coming out of BlackRock, Black Lives Matter, you had a lot of people in these studios that were saying, well, we need to change our culture and we need to not display certain people as people, basically, and basically said you can only represent these people if it's in this tremendously good light, and you can't show them having any kind of flaws or any kind of issues, and that has been really awful for entertainment in general, where you have a lot of works where you have very unlikable or unrealistic people, and we all kind of know, oh, great example, Tosh from Dragon Age: The Veilguard. Baldur's Gate 3, you can kill off any kind of companion you want, but if you were to suggest that at a place like BioWare to say, hey, maybe we should add, some features like out of Baldur's Gate 3 where you can kill your companions, you'd have a lot of people there that would be very upset because the idea of them killing someone like Tosh, who identified as non-binary, that is a tremendous no-no in their book. It's a mess. It's a huge mess. But that's really all I wanted to show you guys today. I get such a kick out of seeing some of the more absurd things that are in my industry right now. And I really wanted to share this with you guys. But that's it for today. And I thank you for your time. And I hope to see you again in a future video. Farewell.